Good morning, everyone. The webinar will begin in just a few minutes. While you are waiting, I do encourage you to download the handout that's available under the Handouts tab on the control panel. It summarizes today's presentation, and you can take notes on it during the presentation. While we wait for the webinar to begin, we do have Christy Frieden on the line with us. Good morning, Christy.
Good morning, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good. It's Friday.
Yes.
Quick question for you. So with the NCAA basketball tournament starting yesterday, that's also known as March Madness, I read a statistic that there is a related loss of productivity in regards to that tournament and the associated brackets. Have you heard anything about that?
I sure have heard a lot about that. And what I found out is actually 75 million workers will spend about 6 hours of work time on March Madness related activities. So it's just kind of interesting. And what they find is that it's $13.3 billion lost in productivity. So I know that in years past, it's one of those things that employers kind of struggle against. But my take this year is I think employers should embrace it because it's a way of bringing people together. It's a fun way of bringing people together, getting people to to engage, talk to each other. So I think this year more than ever, we need things to bring us together, and this is one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I know a lot of companies have their own internal brackets, and
Yep.
they have prizes. Sometimes they can't do cash prizes, but they'll give other, gift card or other prizes associated that are non-monetary. And I know
Definitely.
sometimes the competition gets kind of heated, so it's
That's
fun,
right. It
So
is. It's fun. It's something different,
it,
and I think, and we'll get into this, but I think nowadays we really need to get creative with how we're engaging our employees,
mhm.
and this would be just a fun way of doing it. So I say embrace it.
Yeah, I agree. Especially after some
Yes.
of the there's a couple of bracket busters last night, so a lot of people's
Yeah.
brackets are not doing well this morning, mine included.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's always fun. It's always fun, and it's just something that I think, even if you don't have a lot of knowledge about college basketball, you can just fill out a bracket and see how it goes. Sometimes people who don't have the least amount of knowledge end up putting together something that and end up winning. So it's kind of funny.
Mhm. Yep. Okay, well, we are right at 11 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Redefining Employee Engagement and Retention. My name is Patrick Allen. I'm Program Manager for Kent State's Center for Corporate and Professional Development's Public Open Enrollment Programs. Our center specializes in providing employee development for partnering organizations in Northeast Ohio and around the world. We offer training as both public open enrollment programs, currently being delivered both virtually via Zoom, and we have also started some in-person programs in Independence, Ohio. And we can also customize any program and deliver it live and virtual or in person at your location. I am joined today by Kent State facilitator Christy Frieden. She will be your host, or I will be your host, and she will be the presenter for today. Christy specializes in motivating, training, and coaching professionals, supervisors, and managers in areas such as change, leadership, emotional intelligence, and employee engagement. She has over 17 years of healthcare management experience, most recently working for a Cleveland hospital as a manager of performance management, then as an organizational and performance development specialist. She attained her developing leadership through emotional intelligence certificate from Case Western Reserve University and holds a bachelor's degree from Slippery Rock University and a master's from West Virginia University in vocational counseling. Her passion and dynamic presentation style, as well as her down-to-earth attitude, engages and motivates her audience to focus on their strengths and achieve personal and professional success. For Kent State, Christy facilitates programs such as effective organizational leadership, understanding emotional intelligence, managing transition and embracing change during challenging times, and effective performance management for supervisors and managers. Everyone in attendance today has been muted to avoid background noise from any of the nearly 100 registered participants. And today's webinar will be very interactive, and Christy will be asking for your responses and any questions that you might have. We encourage you to ask questions at any point during the hour. You can submit your questions to me using the questions tab in the control panel. And I will present questions to Christy if time permits throughout the webinar. Again, there's a handout available to you that summarizes today's presentation, and it's located under the handouts tab on the control panel. We are recording today's webinar, and you will receive an email early next week with a link to the recording after we conclude our time together. And now I'd like to introduce Christy Frieden.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate you joining us for this webinar today, talking about employee engagement and retention. Seems like it's taken on a new meaning with all the challenges that we've been facing in the past couple years. So this morning, as far as our objectives go, we're going to talk about those retention challenges that organizations are facing. I'm going to share with you a variety of statistics so you'll recognize you're not alone in some of the struggles. Also discussing how to identify and meet employee needs. More than ever, we need to be employee focused. And so how do we do that? And then wrapping up with recognizing strategies for improving workplace engagement and making people feel connected to your organization and just different ways to do that. So let's get started talking about this Great Resignation. I mean, everybody's experienced it. Both personally, you've probably reflected on it a bit, and we're going to ask you some questions throughout this the session about that. But also, organizationally, really, organizations are feeling the squeeze from this. It's a time where employees are reassessing, what they're doing, reflecting on, hey, is this for me anymore, and do I want something different? Employees are not feeling seen, heard, and understood. And I think that's the key here that we really need to start focusing on. Are our employees feeling seen? Are they feeling heard? And are we trying to really understand where they're coming from? So it's a challenge for organizations right now, but ultimately with every great challenge comes great opportunity. And so it's a time for organizations to rethink how they're going about work and reimagining policies, procedures, workplace, just reimagining what they could be doing differently that can maybe create and shift that dynamic and really take a look at their culture. So here's some statistics that I find to be extremely interesting here. So 38 million US employees quit their jobs in 2021. 41% of the total global workforce is considering resigning. 74% of people said being stuck at home during the pandemic was the cause for them to reconsider their current state of employment. This is an interesting one. So almost half of millennials, 47%, and Gen Zs, 45%, said they would take a smaller pay increase in exchange for permanent remote work. Let that sink in for a second. Permanent remote work, they'd take a smaller pay increase. So think about that. The next one, the most common reasons for resigning, just that lack of work-life balance. People want to find more fulfillment. They want to find a better place to work for them. And a really low statistic of 20% of employees worldwide are actually engaged in their work. So that's really low. But in terms of all of these statistics, which I think they're all pretty fascinating, thinking about that statistic about millennials and Gen Zs, these are the people that are in the workforce and up and coming in the workforce, and how important remote work is. And so it's time for employers to start really considering how much or how often they can offer remote work, because it's half of these people, it's super important to them. So when we talk about an employee engagement, what is it really? It's different from satisfaction, in that employee satisfaction is more of a superficial level. I like my pay, I get good benefits, work environment's good. But employee engagement is it's much deeper, where it's a state of mind, a positive psychological state of mind, where people feel like um, they're they're dedicated, they're absorbed, they devote themselves actively in their position. And when you think about what it is, essentially, it's when a person's core values and their strengths and their skills align with their organization's core values, culture, and need. So really, when you break it down, it's that alignment. It's the people that we hire. They feel that their personal values line up with the core values of the organization. They have those skills that meet organizational needs, and the culture of the organization is a good fit for the employee. So when we think about that, I'd like to throw this question out to you first. And again, these are anonymous. No one knows who's sending in what. But I would like to know, of the people that have joined us today on the webinar, how many people would say, how engaged are you? So actively engaged, meaning you're bought in, you're putting in all the discretionary effort, you're devoted to your organization. Be somewhat engaged, so you feel you are engaged, but maybe lagging a little bit. C, somewhat disengaged, so you're finding maybe you're burnt out, things aren't going as you would like them to go. And then D, actively disengaged. Maybe you're currently looking for another position, or realizing, hey, I don't really like this anymore. So Patrick, if you can open up the first polling question.
Okay, they are open.
Excellent.
Okay, it's looking like the majority of people have voted so far, so I'll just give it another few seconds.
Okay.
All right, closing them up. And it looks like 45% are somewhat engaged.
Okay.
27% actively engaged.
Okay.
18% somewhat disengaged, and 9% actively disengaged.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Good to know. It's just good to know. Actually, it's a good question for you to reflect on, to kind of assess where you're at. But just really good to know in terms of this webinar and the people that we have on, where you are personally. So thank you for being honest and sharing that. Any questions up until this point? Patrick, is there any questions up until this point?
There's only one. What happens if my core values don't exactly match my organization's core values? What should I do?
Yeah. So that's something to consider, because value alignment is really critical for engagement. So it's a personal question, and there are a lot of things to consider in terms of whether whether you think you should stay in your organization or not. But I guess what I would do is really try to break it down and determine what values are not aligned, and if that's something that you can live with or not. I mean, there may be some alignment with some values, and then there may be a couple that aren't aligned, and so you really need to consider, I guess I would suggest just breaking it down a little bit, and thinking, is that something you can live with? Or if it's a really core, really important top value for you, then maybe, that's something that you can't overlook. So really try to break down what values align and what don't. But that's a great question, so thank you. Okay, so let's continue on talking about this new reality of the hybrid work environment. Okay, so when we think about during the past couple years, 42 to 72% of people said they have worked from home, just based on the pandemic and everything that's happened. 40% say they are planning on going back to the office. All right. But here's a couple other interesting stats here. 3% say they want to go back to the office. All right. 3% say they want to go back. And then 56% say they'd like to go back, but not full time. So maybe part-time remote, part-time, going back to the office. So here's our new reality. I mean, this is what it is. People have found that they can be very productive at home, that they can, get the job done, that they can achieve the results. Organizations are, some organizations are looking to sell their or release their leases for their buildings, for their, office spaces, but because they found that it is so effective. People are so effective in working at home. And just for myself, I used to go out and do a lot of in-person training, but now a lot of it is virtual and it seems to be working. So I think employers need to really consider doing this, or at least having it as an option. Certainly there are people that want to go back to the office, but recognizing that so many people have got accustomed to this new way of working and found a lot of work-life balance in it, and so there's extreme value in trying to put this into place. And I understand it doesn't work for every industry, but in areas that you can do it, I would highly recommend doing it. So polling question number 2, I'd just like to know, of the people that we have on this webinar, are you 100% remote? Are you 100% back in the office? Or are you working some type of hybrid model, which means you're working a couple days maybe from home and then going into the office a couple days? So if we could open it up, Patrick, and see what everyone has to say on this one.
Okay, looks like the majority have voted. Close it down here in just a couple seconds.
Okay.
So at 55%, 100% back in the office.
Okay.
41% a hybrid model, and only 5% are 100% remote.
Interesting. All right, so that gives me a kind of an idea of where we're at. I mean, it's just something to consider, and it looks like quite a few, as far as the hybrid goes, it looks like quite a few of you are doing that hybrid model, and so that's really good. Okay, that's really good, and hopefully that's working out for all of you, and it's something that you can continue doing if that's what you want to do. So let's talk a little bit more about hybrid model, and also if we're bringing employees back, and kind of what to think about in terms of these ideas. So the most important thing I can say is communicate. It's really important that we are communicating with our employees. If they're going to be hybrid, the main thing we're communicating is expectations. Expectations of work, of getting work done, of time spent working, and then guidelines in terms of how we're going to touch base, how often they need to reach out to you, how often you're going to be reaching out to them, the guidelines when you are reaching out. So if you're on Zoom or Teams, do we have is it imperative that you have your camera on? And I mean, just lots of different things. So really be clear on setting expectations and guidelines in terms of working from home or the hybrid model. Now, if you are bringing employees back to the office, you need to carefully communicate compelling reasons why you're doing so. Just because is not good enough. And I just want to let that sink in a little bit. So, you know, we really want to be very clear with our employees if we're bringing them back why it's so important. And so if we need everyone to be coming back to work, you know, can we create incentives so people want to return to work? I just heard something recently about an employer providing like a gas stipend just because gas is so pricey right now, or you know, some type of like a lunch or meal ticket or provision. So something that entices people to come back. That's something that's really, really important. We also want to reimagine the workplace itself, you know, the feel of it. We want to create an atmosphere where people want to come and be together and share ideas and collaborate. So as much as we can try to promote collaboration, if you want people to return back to work, try to promote that, rethink how that might look. And then in weekly meetings, you know, we want to touch base, whether people are at home or people are in the office, you know, saying things like, you know, what were the highs and lows of the week? You know, what are your stressors this past week? What was the impact of those? Because, you know, we see just the psychological impact of everything that's gone on in the past couple of years. We want to be real aware of that with our people. You know, what can we do for each other as a team? What you can do for your team as a manager to make things a little better for the following week. I mean, these are just questions that maybe we never really asked before, but now, you know, these are things that are really important in terms of touching base and continuing those relationships with your employees. So I want to pause for a moment here and ask you if you have any questions up until this point related to anything that I've shared. Any questions coming through, Patrick?
Just one.
Okay.
What should I do if I really want to work from home, but my employer will not allow me to?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Okay, that's a tough one. And so what I would recommend is having the conversation, okay, expressing your interest in it, and sharing what results you can achieve working from home. Okay, not necessarily the reasons why you want to work from home, but more focus on what's in it for your employer. What's in it for your employer if you are able to work from home? So think through all of that, and maybe share with them. You know, you can be more focused. You know, you can, you know, get more work done. I mean, whatever it is, have it not about necessarily you and why you want to work from home, but more about what you can do for the employer if you are able to work from home. Hope that makes sense, but that's kind of how you have to spin it, you know, essentially what's in it for your employer. So hope that makes sense. Anything else, Patrick, in terms of questions at this point?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to our third polling question. And this is just kind of interesting. I'd like to know from the group here, since March of 2020, have you stayed in the position that you're in and with the organization that you're in? Have you, are you currently actively looking for a new job? And then C, have you left the organization you were with when this whole thing started and now you're in a new job with a new organization? So if you can open up the polls and hear where everyone's at as far as this question goes.
Okay, just a few more seconds and I'm going to close them.
All right.
Um, 68% stayed in my current position or organization, and then the other two are both tied at 16%.
16. Okay, interesting. All right. So those of you, most of you stayed in that current position and have weathered the storm. Congratulations for that. I know it's probably, I know it's been a struggle. And those of you who are looking for a new role, I mean, obviously you're not alone. That's one of those things that, you know, you're realizing, hey, maybe this isn't for me anymore. So really good to always be considering that, you know, if there may be an opportunity better for you somewhere else. So thank you for sharing those. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about evaluating your culture, because that's what we want to do. You know, we want to create an engaging culture that people feel like they really feel a part of it and they really want to bring their best effort to work every day. So these are the behaviors, according to a study, that supervisors do that inspire employees' best work. So these are in the top 10 in rank order. So you can kind of see, you know, these are, you know, basic things, right? These are the things that employees feel are very important, somewhat are very important. So respecting their opinion, showing that sincere appreciation, truly listening to what they have to say, valuing contribution, admitting when they're wrong. Okay, that's an interesting one, right? That maybe you're not thinking about. Encourages their ideas, uses their name. So that's a basic one, right? Sees their point of view, generally interested in what they have to say, doesn't do all the talking. So this is the rank order of that. And I will mention, as I noticed on the handout, I did not put doesn't do all the talking. So you might want to add that on your handout. There's 10 and there's only 9 on the handout. So I apologize for that, but you may want to add that. So then this is the research in terms of when employees were given these, if their supervisor actually does this or not, okay? So if the supervisor does this most of the time. And so what you'll notice is there's quite a bit of a difference on most of these, not all of them, but most of them. And here are the 3 that are where the biggest gaps are. Shows sincere appreciation, truly listens, and admits when they're wrong. Okay, those are the biggest gaps of this is important, and does my supervisor do this or not? So something to consider when in terms of providing training to your supervisors or leaders. You know, these are really great key competencies that should be expressed to those leaders in training, because we need to make sure that they're doing these things. We want to inspire our employees to bring their best work. So just a few characteristics that we need to consider in terms of our leaders. So other top motivators. So it's that direct, honest, two-way communication, making sure you're always doing that, overly communicating. Asking those employees for their input and their ideas. Providing autonomy and authority, empowerment, not micromanagement, so important. Involving people in decision making, especially if they've been in their position a long time and they have a lot of knowledge about it, involving them in decision making. Focus on employee development and career goals. The whole idea of asking people, I always say, hey, are you asking people at least on a yearly basis, what are their career goals in the next couple years? Do you know what they want to do? Because that's really where that intrinsic motivation comes from. And if you know that, then you can, encourage that. And then some people might say, hey, I want to be a supervisor. Okay, let's get you in some classes. Let's find you a mentor, a coach, get you on that path. And some people might say, I just want to stay in this current position till I retire. That's fine. Make them the best employee they can be in that current position. Have them maybe mentor employees that are coming, new employees, and maybe some expanding their knowledge in that current position. So, but knowing that is really, really important. Supporting when people make a mistake, treating a mistake as a teachable moment, not something punitive. It's important we're creating psychological safety with our employees. And so that's an important one. And then focusing on strength. I did a whole webinar on focusing on strengths. It's really important to me and key for engagement. But one of the most interesting bit of research on this is Gallup asked the question, at work, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best every day? And people that agreed with that statement were 6 times more likely to be engaged in their work and 3 times more likely to have a better overall quality of life in general. So that question, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day, making sure you're matching individual strengths with the work that they're doing? Really, really important. And then in terms of employers and retention strategies, just to mention a couple here for you that I've heard or things that are important, hold that listening tour, co-creating with employees what this new reality looks like, making sure people feel heard. Reflect on those organizational policies and practices. Maybe you haven't looked at these in a while or for a few years, and maybe now we're reimagining what our work world is. So reflect on those policies and priorities, making your employee the priority. Reward employees with higher wages if possible. I mean, look at those key positions, those really high performers. It's better to keep those people than have them leave and you have to replace them. Okay, so if you're able to reward with higher wages, do so. Provide any opportunity you can for advancement, growth, and development. Training opportunities, mentoring opportunities, stretch assignments, all of those things. Millennials and Gen Zs, they want growth and development. So make sure you are doing that for them. Make internal hiring a priority. Keep those people that are doing a great job and try to promote them within the organization. Support that hybrid work environment. Be flexible, okay? And the people that are working from home, make sure they feel included, okay? Make sure they feel included in what's going on. Enable that team collaboration, whether it's hybrid, whether it's remote, whether it's in the office. Just make sure that everyone's treated as a full team member. Emphasize that psychologically healthy work environment. Support stress reduction efforts. Anything that you can do to support stress reduction can be huge. And then create that culture of are you recognizing very specifically with their what they're doing. Just make sure you're telling people how important they are, how valuable they are to you. We're creating that culture of recognition. It's so tied to motivation and engagement. Recognition is there. 67% of employees say recognition is their top performance motivator. Talk about the future and how they are a part of it, okay? Paint that picture for people that they're a part of the success of the organization into the future. Little interesting note, 18 months is the average tenure for millennials, okay? Keep that in mind, all right? And if they're high performers, how do you keep those people? And then in terms of recognition ideas, just things that I've heard recently, and just things that I've known have been successful, pass around trophies, get a trophy, someone gets recognized, they keep it at their desk. But this is also something you can ship in the mail to people who are remote and they can have it on their desk at home. So pass around trophies or rewards. Value tokens. So someone's demonstrating the value of your organization, have little tokens, get the tokens made, maybe they can be redeemed for something. A parking spot, an employee day, simple things like, like the picture there is that little picture with the stars, and that seems so basic, but honestly, adults like It's little things like that, just like kids do. Little post-it notes that are stars, posting it on people's desks. Sending meals. You know, if you're going to have some kind of a special meal in the office, sending meals home to someone's home for a lunch so they can share it. Gift cards, gas cards, okay, that's really important right now. Food of any kind. I mean, all of these things are huge. People just want to feel, as I mentioned at the beginning, seen, heard, and understood. And that's really the basis and the keys to creating that culture of recognition, and it's so important. So in conclusion, and then we're going to offer some time for questions. You know, when we think about great places to work and what they have in common, first of all, they have a meaningful mission and purpose, and everyone gets behind that mission and purpose, and whatever that is. They are intentionally creating that culture of engagement. They're putting their people first and intentionally creating events and policies that promote engagement. They have empowered people. Okay, people are empowered to make decisions, even to make mistakes, to try new things. Okay, to be innovative. So empowered people, and then a transparent management approach. Now more than ever, you need to be as transparent as possible, because people want to feel like they know who they're working for. They know what direction it's going. They know why decisions are being made, and they make sense to them. And so these are 4 key things that when you think about great places to work, that they all have in common. So with that being said, just as a kind of a wrap up, and then we'll open it up to some questions. Hopefully now you know a little bit about more about those retention challenges that organizations face. I hope you feel like you're not alone, because everyone's really in the same boat. Now thinking about what do employees need and how can we meet those needs. And what it really boils down to is having conversations with your employees and asking them what they need. And maybe you can't provide them everything, but ask them what's important and can you provide that, and really reimagining what you can do. And then taking a look at those strategies for improving, you know, workplace connection and engagement. So at this point, I want to save some time for questions. So Patrick, are there any questions based off of what I have shared?
Yeah, we do have quite a few actually coming in.
Okay.
2 of them are concerned about that they're a manufacturing company, and they would like to be more flexible with their office staff, but the production employees react poorly to the office staff being able to work remote. How can they balance, you know, the 2 groups, with one making one group happy by being able to work remote while making the other group angry?
Yeah, that's particularly challenging. I don't have a great answer for that. I mean, you know, I guess with the manufacturing group, are there ways that you can incorporate more flexibility in what they're doing? You know, maybe think about that. And then as far as the office staff, you know, I mean, that's just, I guess what it is, it's just inherent to the work that they're doing, that they're able to do something like that. So I guess it's communicating that, recognizing, is it worth it? You know, I guess got to consider that. You know, is it worth providing the hybrid model or the remote work for the office staff if the manufacturing staff gets really upset about it? But ultimately, you know, I guess it's taking each group separately and seeing what you can do to meet their needs. It's not going to be perfect. Someone's going to be mad about something, but really having those conversations with people, individuals, and figuring out what can be done. But that's a tough one. That's a real tough one. And even in healthcare, that's a similar type of situation, where there's the office staff and then that can, work remote. And then obviously there's, direct care staff that cannot. So definitely a challenge.
Sure. Okay, somebody just made a comment that although somebody might have stayed with their current position or organization through the pandemic, they may still be actively looking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's extremely common. I mean, and there's so many opportunities out there right now, that you can't hold that against anybody. I mean, yeah, everyone's looking for that new opportunity or new fit or better fit for them.
Excuse me. How do we develop culture with our work from home teams?
So, that's a great question. And it's one of those things that you have to, um, almost do more for the remote team if you really want that culture. It's like really over communicating with them, especially if they first get hired. Making people feel like they're part of the team. um, Doing certain, if you're going to do certain, team building exercises, just make sure that someone can participate from home. Like, let's say you're going to have a popcorn party or something like that. Make sure, maybe send them some microwave popcorn at their home so they can, make it and have it with you. But it's just, when you're having your meetings virtually, just doing some team building on the meeting, saying things like, okay, what's the best thing that happened to you since the last time we met? And everyone goes around and shares, so building people's relationships, maybe some type of a mentor or a coach that can be, touch base even more often than you would as the supervisor, someone that's been with the organization for a long time. So anything that you can do to bring them into the fold, overly communicate with them, and just be very thoughtful in terms of whatever you're doing for your in-office staff. If you have any, do the same thing for your virtual staff.
Okay. How do you approach employees about providing us the opportunity for retention before they resign?
Say that one more time.
How do you approach employees about providing us the opportunity for retention before they resign?
So, I think you've got to be aware. You've got to be aware of what people are saying, how people are acting, and have that dialogue with people. Don't wait till they come to you and say, "Oh, I've got to find a new job." Have that ongoing dialogue. Or how are you doing? What can I help you with? How are things going? What would make this better for you? Just that ongoing dialogue, but also just paying attention, being aware of what people are saying, how people are acting. And if you find that you're recognizing the signs of burnout, where people are feeling really, really discouraged, intervening with that, making sure you're being proactive with those conversations is really, really important.
Okay, next question. How do I engage the office staff with the hourly or production staff?
So, as far as in those people that work in the office, with the production staff, you can think in terms of, maybe even prior to the pandemic, what are things you can do that bring the whole group together? Hey, maybe having an ice cream truck pull up and letting people go out and grab, a special treat or something like that. Maybe having like a potluck Friday or something like that in the lunchroom where people can come together and maybe they don't normally do that. Just trying to do whatever you can do to be creative. One of the things, that I heard at one point was, and this is something that has been has gone on for quite a while, but those getting to know me sheets where when you're hired, you fill out like your favorite food, your favorite, how you like to be rewarded, recognized, things about you personally. So that's good to know that. And so if you're able to know your people, the more you're able to know your people, the more you're able to know what to do to reward them and know what to do that's going to help to bring them together and help them kind of enjoy and get to know each other on a different level. So anything you can do that kind of brings people out of their current work world into maybe outdoors or in a different setting where people can intermingle. I think that's the best way to do that. But you have to be intentional about it for sure.
Okay. Earlier, you did mention something about the millennials and only having 18 months tenure on average.
Yeah.
This question is about that. How do you keep the younger generations interested in their position or work?
Yeah. I think they're really looking for development. They're looking for development, and so making sure you're creating every opportunity you can for development, and that can mean just it can mean training, okay, but it also can mean just opportunities, maybe like having some kind of um, uh, an employee group that gets together to support each other, or that mentoring is huge. Okay, so finding those people that maybe have been in your organization for a long time, your high performers that really know a lot, and want to share their knowledge. So that mentorship is really, really important. Any type of anything you can bring into just team meetings, like to share information, or like a book club, or anything that they can learn and grow from, and then tying what they're doing into the future of the organization, and creating that excitement for them is huge.
Okay. How do you get a micromanager to change their behavior when dealing with an advanced hire or professional with strong skills?
Huh. All right.
That's a good question.
Yeah. All right. Say the question again. Give me a second to think about it. Another second to think about it. Tell me the question again.
Okay. How do you get a micromanager to change their behavior when dealing with what they're calling an advanced hire professional with strong skills? I guess what they mean, how to change their behavior when they're dealing with a, higher up professional, I guess.
Yeah. So there's so many different facets of that. I'm not sure if, I can try to answer it, but I'm not sure if I know the full, I don't know if this is a human resource person trying to coach this manager on that, or if this is actually a person reporting to this person. But anyway, in terms of trying to coach someone on not being a micromanager, I think what needs to be expressed to that person is what specific behavior they're doing and what the impact of that behavior is on this maybe experienced professional. And so, it's about sharing with them, hey, when you do this, this is the results you're getting. And ultimately, you're creating disengagement, or you're not valuing that person and all the experience and knowledge they bring to the table. And the other thing is to share with the manager not to be threatened by that, it's great to have very knowledgeable professional people on your team. And so how can you, as a supervisor, encourage that instead of being more of a micromanager? It's like creating that more empowerment for that person. That's only going to make your team stronger. So just if you're providing feedback to that micromanager, just making sure they're clear on what behaviors they're doing and what the impact of those behaviors are. And then what's in it for them if they stop micromanaging and let this person be empowered.
All right. Okay, we have time for one last question. How do you recognize signs of disengagement? And do you have any suggestions on how to re-engage or how to identify personal drivers that motivate people?
Yeah. When we talk about signs of disengagement, someone who is actively disengaged is talking about it, right? They're bad mouthing the organization, they're bad mouthing their supervisor, they're bad mouthing the work that they're doing. So someone who's actively disengaged is someone who's going around talking about it. But those people who are maybe disengaged that aren't, that are more quiet about it, it's just those signs of burnout, signs of burnout, that they're not enthusiastic about what they're doing. Maybe there's they're slipping in meeting deadlines, timelines, they look overwhelmed, these types of things. And you just have to continue to communicate with them. And one of the keys is sometimes it's just being honest. Hey, you look like you know, this place isn't for you anymore. Is that true? Or, it's like having that open dialogue about what you're seeing and maybe confirming that, or maybe they're just struggling with something at home, but you need to ask. You need to ask. And in terms of what motivators can get them back engaged, that's something that you have to ask them. What would they like to see? What do they want from you? What would they like the organization to be providing? I mean, you just have to ask, and it's different for everybody.
Okay, great. Okay, well, that does conclude our time together. We would like to thank you for attending and encourage you to check out all of our upcoming programs and register at the website on your screen, www.kent.edu/yourtrainingpartner, or you can contact us about today's topic or any of our other topics at 330-672-3416, or you can email us at yourtrainingpartner@kent.edu. We can bring all of our programs to your organization, either virtually or in person, and tailor them to fit your needs. You can join our extensive list of clients and bring Kent State to your organization. We also encourage you to register for our next webinar, which is on April 22nd at 11 a.m., where we'll be discussing dealing with difficult behaviors with Kent State facilitator Deborah Easton. Registration for that webinar is open at the link that you see on your screen, or you can get to it from our website. And we'll be discussing the most common reactions to difficult behaviors that make the situation worse, how to understand what drives people into difficult behaviors and provide clues for how to handle the behavior, and what everyone, not just managers, can do to handle the difficult behaviors. For those attending live, you will be asked to complete a short survey. Please complete this survey so that we can be assured that we are bringing you the most usable and relevant content possible. You'll also receive an email next week with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of Kent State Center for Corporate and Professional Development and our presenter, Christy Frieden, thank you for attending today and have a great weekend.
Thank you.